The Neverending Story by Michael End, published in 1979. Man, all these reviews, they end up longer than I expect them to be. Whatever, I'll cut back once I've gotten some more practice under my metaphoric belt. The real question is, should you read this book? And the real answer is no. Shocking, right? Given all the praise I've had for this book in my past videos. But before I give you my reasons, here's a brief synopsis. So we have this magical world, this place called Fantastica that is in peril, and it is up to a boy named Bastian to travel into this storybook world on a daring journey to save it from destruction. Only time will tell if he can do so before losing himself to this spreading nothingness that is enveloping the world. And yes, I did say Fantastica, which sounds rather strange when spoken out loud. One of the fortunate changes made in the film where they refer to it as Fantasia. Anyway, let's go over the pros. Number 1, the premise is great. Here we have a fantasy storybook that showcases a world that our protagonist can actually enter. Who hasn't read some bit of fiction and wished they could climb into that world? It's a fun idea. Secondly, the creatures in Fantastica are some of the most imaginative creatures I've seen read in a very, very long time. There is a creature with 4 heads, each showcasing a different emotion. There's one with a head and feet and nothing else. You've got worm-like creatures that live underground and cry all the time because reasons. There are rabbit-like creatures with feathers that can run so fast they basically become invisible, and so on and so forth. I wish more fantasy showcased this kind of inventiveness. Thirdly, I thought the nods to how stories never end, that aspect of it was clever and interesting. The author constantly brings up these side stories, then cuts them off by saying, "But that's another story and shall be told another time." It all serves to emphasize the infinite number of stories in the world. On top of that, each individual story is ongoing because every resolution ushers in a new beginning. Stories are interconnected. They are constantly flowing in and through one another. This idea plays a big part in the book's final pages. They're open-ended, and they left me wondering what might happen next, emphasizing the idea that nothing ever truly ends. Fourth, the first half of the book is actually a lot of fun, which is odd to say because the main character here is Atreyu, and he isn't the protagonist. He's a character in a book Bastian is reading, which means we are reading a book about a boy reading a book about a boy having an adventure. Fun, right? Yeah. The setup doesn't seem like it should work, yet Atreyu, though flat and capable and good to an implausible degree, he's a very likable hero, and his quest to save Fantastica is enjoyable to read. Plus, he contrasts nicely with Bastian on almost every level. Ah, Bastian, what an unlikable human being. And there I go again, diving prematurely into the negatives. Oh well, let's go ahead and dig in. Starting with Bastian himself, there isn't much to like about him. He's uninspiring, he comes off as unintelligent, weak, he's overweight, he's unmotivated, and as the story progresses and things start to go his way, we get to add in whiny and arrogant to the mix. How am I supposed to care about anything he says or does? Outside of his love of books, I can't relate with Bastian on really any level. Perhaps this is more a commentary on my taste than the book itself. If I don't like a character, if there isn't at least a small thing I can latch onto and respect in them, I lose interest in the story. Even an acclaimed novel like The Book Thief didn't resonate with me because I didn't care about the main character. All she did was steal things. Or more recently, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, where I found the main character so unmotivated and oddly emotional about all of these seemingly unimportant things, I couldn't finish the book. I might have lost a few viewers with that statement. Maybe all of them. Oh well, I should probably get back on track here. What was I talking about again? Oh, right. Bastian. Didn't like him. And in spite of all the cool imagery and things that happen in the Neverending Story, I couldn't get past how much I disliked him. Point number 2, the book doesn't seem quite dark enough, given how many rather morbid things happen in it. For example, the fantastical creatures of Fantastica don't seem to care about their well-being at all. It's very, very odd. Death seems to be irrelevant to them. It's one thing to be selfless. That implies a willingness to sacrifice oneself for the greater good. But here, they don't seem to see death as a sacrifice at all. It's just whatever. Scenes have very little weight to them because the characters seem too indifferent to their troubles. And lastly, this should come as a surprise to no one, most of the second half of the book falls flat, which is a real shame because what precedes is quite enjoyable. It's a strange phenomena. When our protagonist Bastian enters Fantastica, I should have been pulled further into the story along with him, but the complete reverse happens, and every time Michael Ende mentions a side story, I'd find myself wishing I was reading about that instead. In conclusion, don't read this book. Or maybe you should, I don't know, that's up to you. There's a good chance that you will like this book, as the novel actually holds a 4.17 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. That's not too shabby. To each their own, I guess. But for me, the Neverending Story did the opposite of what I felt it should have done. It showed a bland, talentless kid go bad for very selfish reasons. It's fine to set Bastian up as this wimp, but don't make him less likable as the story progresses. Of course, I'm sure what you've all actually been waiting for is for me to share my opinions on the film. Which one's better? Does the film capture the magic of the book? And does Bastian actually work in it? But that's another story and shall be told another time. As a side note, I think I finally figured out how to get my audio to not suck. Turns out the key is to save it at a higher bitrate. Go figure, right? Anyway, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Peace.